material. Despite its success, the landscape of Normandy had not allowed the Tiger tanks to be used to their full potential.
The Tiger probably made a difference on the Eastern Front, where the Germans faced a target-rich environment. And it's good tank country. When you get it into an area where it's like a city or a lot of places in Western Europe, where the terrain is closed down and you can't see 2,000 meters, it loses a lot of effectiveness in that it doesn't have the fields of fire that it would have in Russia.
Despite his empire collapsing around him, Adolf Hitler still pursued his dream of a bigger and better tank. Incredibly, at this late stage in the war, the Third Reich found the resources to produce the Tiger's successor, the even more powerful King Tiger. Hitler would use this super tank in a daring last-minute gamble to turn the tide of the war. By late 1944, the German army was in retreat on all fronts, but Hitler believed that the new, larger King Tiger tank would give his panzer divisions the winning edge on the battlefield. 5 years of war had seen his panzers sustain enormous losses in material, which even the efficient German armaments industry found difficult to replace. Once the United States and the Soviet Union had entered the war, German tank production could not compete. The Americans alone produced 4 times as many tanks as Germany, and the Soviet Union produced more than 40,000 T-34s during the course of the war. But Hitler was obsessed with super heavy tanks. He believed that superior weapons were the key to victory. They were, however, expensive. A Tiger tank took 300,000 man-hours to build at a cost of 800,000 Reichmarks, the same as 3 fighter planes. To solve their manpower problems, the Nazis staffed their factories with forced labor. This actually hampered German mass production, as it took far longer to build the sophisticated Tiger tank, with many needless man-hours being wasted. Whereas the American Sherman and the Russian T-34 tanks were far more suited to mass production by relatively unskilled workers. The new King Tiger was introduced onto the battlefield in late 1944. At 70 tons, it would be the largest tank in service during World War II. Its long-barreled gun could deal with any tank with apparent ease. Panzer Commander Richard von Rosen is seen here inspecting his battle group of King Tigers.
The King Tiger had a similar shape to the T-34. It had sloping armor, not the square shape of the Tiger I. In the West, the enemy tanks didn't give us a headache, neither the Sherman or the bigger version, the Firefly, with its bigger gun. None of this was a problem for us.
The Ardennes counteroffensive, known as the Battle of the Bulge, began on the 16th of December 1944. It is the one battle of the war most closely linked with the King Tiger tank. Hitler ordered 10 Panzer and 14 infantry divisions to break through the Ardennes forest in Belgium, seize the port of Antwerp, and sever the Allied supply line to their northern armies. One King Tiger battalion was placed in an SS battle group spearheading the advance. Using the poor weather to their advantage, the German troops completely surprised the Americans, throwing them back in disarray within the first few days. A German breakthrough looked imminent. Although the Germans only deployed about 150 King Tigers, their reputation completely outweighed the impact of their numbers.
Initially, during the Battle of the Bulge, when the King Tiger was used against American troops, it panicked them. They'd never seen anything that big. So they were caught completely by surprise. Here they are, supposed to be in a quiet front. The next thing you know, they have this monstrous, huge King Tiger rolling down on top of them, and it shocked them. It was hard to recover from this initial panic.
But despite its lethal killing power, the Germans soon discovered they had made a tactical blunder in using King Tigers to spearhead the offensive. Because of its size, the King Tiger was not suited to rapid maneuvering through the narrow roads of the hilly and heavily wooded terrain of the Ardennes.
They're operating in mud and slush, snow. And because it was so huge, the German engineers would have to build special bridges for it and raft these things across. The attack bogged down.
When the SS tank crews ran out of fuel and ammunition, they were forced to fight their way out on foot, after first destroying their own King Tigers rather than see them captured. The desperate nature of the fighting experienced in the Ardennes counteroffensive became evident in one incident, when 77 unarmed American prisoners were brutally massacred by the SS near Malmedy. After the war, 80 former SS soldiers were prosecuted for murder. The Germans sought to maintain the initiative by redeploying the remaining King Tigers to the town of Bastogne, which had been surrounded earlier in the offensive. But here, determined American resistance prevented Bastogne from falling. A hard battle was fought for this strategic position, but even the King Tigers could not turn the tide. As the weather improved, Allied air superiority decimated the German armor, including the precious King Tigers. With the defeat of Hitler's Ardennes Gamble, the last great Tiger action in the West had been fought and lost. Germany's defeat was now just weeks away. The few Tigers remaining in Hitler's diminishing arsenal were used mainly on the Eastern Front.
The war was lost. Everybody knew that. We only wanted to keep the Russians as far away as possible from the German border. That was our motivation.
During the final 2 years of the war, the Panzer troops had fought with distinction through the great battles on both East and West fronts. Their skill and discipline in defense, often against overwhelming odds, had pushed the Allies to the limit.
People tend to underestimate how good the Germans were, and they also thereby underestimate how good we were.
Throughout its operational life, the Tiger tanks were rushed to every crisis, and their crews fought on every front. Its performance in battle became legendary.
I wouldn't have wanted to go into battle in any other tank but the Tiger, because it was superior in every aspect to every other tank we had.
The Tiger was, for me, the best tank that existed. It had its flaws, which you got to know, but you could live with that. Life in a Tiger crew, commanding a Tiger company, was, for me, the highlight of my time as a soldier.
The Germans were unable to produce such an advanced weapon in the numbers needed to save the Third Reich. Yet even with the defeat of Nazi Germany, the reputation of the Tiger endures.
During World War II, the Tiger tank is absolutely superior to the American M4 Sherman or the Russian T-34. But in the end, they only made 1,300 of them. And overall, that's a drop in the bucket. But, having said that, the tank's going to go down in military history as one of the great tanks of all time.